So we are a text-to-speech company. We do like fundamental research in audio models, and we're very, very excited about MCP. And I'm talking a bit about what we've been doing in the space with our conversational AI. So just an outline, I'll be giving a brief introduction about what we've been doing at ElevenLabs for the last 2 years. I'll be talking a bit about our conversational AI, and how we have integrated MCP into our conversational AI, which is like our voice agents platform. I'll also be talking about the architecture we used to build our MCP product, and the security behind it, and like a bit of advice on how to build great MCP servers for voice agents, because having seen some of the talks before, it's maybe a bit more focused on maybe chat or coding. Whereas for voice and conversational agents, you want to kind of think about structuring your MCP server quite a bit differently. Yeah, so just one more second about ElevenLabs. We do APIs for basically all of audio. So we started with dubbing and text-to-speech, but now we've kind of built a product called Conversational AI that orchestrates all of that, and we will have even more modalities coming soon with like real-time speech-to-text and potentially something in the music space as well coming soon. So yeah, a bit about conversational AI is that kind of maybe a year ago, we saw a lot of companies were orchestrating our speech-to-text and text-to-speech in order to create voice agents, and running into like a lot of issues with all that orchestration. And so we built a product which kind of handles all that complexity for you, by orchestrating kind of the speech-to-text, the text-to-speech, and also just by defining a system prompt and a first message, you get a voice agent that you can talk to. On top of that, you can connect it to your function calls, whatever like API endpoints you have, you can connect it to that and give it access to run those tools during a conversation. And also you get like monitoring, observability, all of that out of it for free. And you can integrate it with any of our SDKs, and you can deploy it with like a single line of HTML. So it's a very cool product, but kind of the thing we ran into the most was that in order to create a great demo, like for example, you're going to have to connect it to 15 different applications, define all the different tool schemas for that. And like that's a perfect case for MCP to come in. And that's kind of one of the reasons we're really excited about it. We also have like a whole bunch of other stuff like state-of-the-art turn taking. We have RAG integrated. So we're building like really a complete conversational AI kind of voice agent platform. But again, the limiting factor is being able to connect these very, very intelligent, capable agents to the context that they really need. And that's why MCP is like just so powerful. So yeah, so like especially our solutions engineering team, when they were trying to create demos for companies, it would take hours just to like manually define all the post requests, all the get requests, all the different tools that the agent should be able to have access to. And I think this kind of tweet here is like just a perfect summary. Is like actually the agents are so clever now, they just need a list of strings of the different tool calls they can make. And it's probably like the right API for most things. Still like there's some issues with like streaming data, authentication isn't quite yet figured out for MCP, but even if all it achieves is being able to quickly get access to kind of the API endpoints that a server exposes, that's already like a very good end state for the AI community, I think. And yeah, so kind of the developer experience we've had at ElevenLabs with MCP is that before, when you were building an agent, it would take like a few days to manually define all the different endpoints, all the different schemas they require across like the different applications. And now you just plug in the MCP server URL and you give that agent access to so many different applications and different tools. And I think generally at ElevenLabs, we have the belief that the agents are just going to continue getting so much better, the LLMs underlying them. And as long as we can just feed them all the right context, everything inside the context is going to be composable. You don't need to worry about how Slack integrates with Linear. You don't need to worry about like making sure the connection's just right. As long as you push it all in context with MCP, the agent will just figure it out. And we've seen this like really help our solutions engineering team. And now we're pushing it externally as well. So we've built like actually a whole product around this. I'm gonna try and share a quick video now that is kind of showing you how we have basically integrated this voice agents with like different MCP servers that you can connect. So I created an MCP server that connects to my Instagram account and can send out DMs, and I can like just talk to this agent and it will send out the DMs for me. So I'm just going to play that. Start this one. We launched 11AI. It's an experimental voice assistant that connects to your favorite applications, these ones here natively, and also to custom MCP servers that you can host. So here I have a hosted MCP server that sends Instagram DMs, and it works super smoothly. Check this out.
Hi, Angelo, it's 11. Tell me what's next on your list.
Hey, can you tell me who the last 4 people to DM me on Instagram were?
I can certainly help you with that, Angelo.
I will retrieve the last 4 people who sent you a direct message on Instagram. The last 4 people to DM you on Instagram were Amelie, Will Stairs, Amelia, and Matthew. Did you want me to get anything else for you?
Yeah, so actually, Matthew was recently on holiday. Can you send him a message being like, hey, Matt, I hope you had a great time in Sicily, mate?
Right, I can do that for you.
I'll send Matthew a message saying, hey, Matt, I hope you had a great time in Sicily, mate. Is that all correct?
Yeah.
All right, I've sent that.
Okay, is there anything else I can help you with right now?
No, that's perfect, 11. Thank you very much. Cool. And if you want to get started, it's super easy. Go to 11.ai and you can connect to any of your applications. Hope you enjoy it. Yeah, so maybe as you can tell, we think like a lot of companies are going to start building these MCP servers. And just because you get a lot of advantages from being able to allow a model to reason in context about your application's data. And I think at ElevenLabs, we have a real opportunity to become the voice client for that. So like a lot of the talks have been talking about how to build a remote MCP server. And like maybe now I'm going to talk a bit about the kind of the things we thought about when becoming a voice client for MCP. And yeah, again, you can connect 11.ai is like an application just for building personal assistants, which joins to all these applications here, but even any custom MCP server. And then ElevenLabs Conversational AI is kind of just a separate platform for building business agents, which are doing customer support or outbound sales, and they can also connect to MCP servers separately. Maybe I'll talk a bit about our like architecture. So we use Golf, golf.dev. Highly recommend you check it out, to offer all these native integrations. And the way we do it is we just have like a simple repo that has different folders, and each one we define like some prompts and some tools inside them. And usually most companies will kind of tell you, like offer these tools files. So you just define the Python, a Python file, and then Golf allows you to create a fast MCP server just from that specification and gives you authentication with OAuth 2.0 and open telemetry out of the box. So for us, it's really simple. If we want to create a new integration, as long as you have a Python MCP server, we can just copy that, create a new folder, and it's immediately deployed into Vercel and is natively available inside our platform. So the iteration velocity is super fast. If you are thinking of becoming an MCP client with different native integrations, I'd highly recommend checking out Golf. And then we also offer custom MCP servers where you just put in a link to a SSE or streamable HTTP MCP server, and they get authenticated via an API key. And then at the start of a conversation or at the start of a phone call, wherever you've deployed this agent, we connect to them, each of them individually. We extract their tools and filter by different permissions. And then we append them to the system prompt of the agent asynchronously, whilst the orchestration of the LLM, the speech to text, the text to speech, all that stuff is still going on. And it feels quite natural because that stuff can happen whilst the conversation is still starting. And generally in a voice conversation, there's like a first 10 seconds, you're just introducing yourself. You won't notice the latency at all. And then anytime there's a tool call, if it's an MCP tool, we just connect to the server and run the execute tool with some extra permissioning checks. And then on the security side, we did quite a few things, which I would highly recommend. Authentication generally for MCP has been like quite a lacking space. for a bit, but we worked with ElevenLabs, who I can also highly recommend. They've recently been acquired by Sneak to kind of craft a MCP security strategy. One of the biggest issues is like these applications that are offering secrets inside the URLs. So definitely like make sure you're storing the URLs as secrets with whatever secret management system you're using. Adding tool approvals is also pretty important. I'll have a whole slide about that. But you should definitely define whether a tool is completely rejected all the time, whether the server can run a tool, or whether a mid-conversation approval is required. And we handle that by the SDK as well. And then also authentication. Probably you should, because these MCP servers can be running like any kind of trivial code, like server-to-server approval is completely necessary, because you can't just have a client starting a conversation with MCP servers that might be running kind of arbitrary actions on your application. And then a bit more about the tool approvals. So once you've created an MCP server, so here I connected, like this is what it looks like when I connect my Stripe MCP server to ElevenLabs. You get asked a few questions like, do you always want to allow a tool from this provider to be executed? Do you want it to be more fine-grained, where you get like a mid-conversation request, or do you want to specify it at different levels during a conversation? So you can even, for each tool, then define, like this tool should never run, like canceling a subscription, that should never be run by MCP. Confirming a payment, well, we need to like accept that mid-conversation and ask the user if they're sure in a pop-up. And then like creating a new customer, we can just always run that. And it's quite a nice kind of API for kind of how tools should be run. And the way we implement this is when we first connect to your MCP server, we extract all the tools, the names, the descriptions, the parameters in their descriptions, whatever. We create a hash from that, and then we store that hash and the approval, the approval type. And then when we try and execute a tool during a conversation, we've extracted those parameters again and check their hash. If the hash matches, then we can apply that specified policy. And if not, we just assume that the user will always reject that tool, and we just hide it from the system prompt. And this looks like, in the widget, it looks like a pop-up, and in the SDKs, it looks like a client message, which is just some JSON, which requires a response. And that's left to the client to handle. But yeah, like this is like definitely a must-have, because MCPs can be doing anything in the Stripe, and especially if you're not quite sure what the source of that MCP server is, there is like some remote code execution risk. This isn't perfect, obviously, because if you don't control the MCP server, it could actually just be doing anything. But it's kind of the best thing we have at the moment. And then I'll maybe talk real quick about kind of how we think about crafting MCP servers for voice agents, because it's actually very different to what you want to do for a coding agent. So for a coding agent, the MCP server you create should be more atomic, because a coding agent can do multiple tools sequentially. So you might want to read a file, then create a new one, then move a file. These are all fine to happen atomically and sequentially. Whereas in a conversational context, you need your MCP server to be more contextual and more optimistic. So for example, when fetching, for example, like a user, some APIs, they're just going to return a 200 and say that the user does exist. But for and then require you to then call another API to get the actual user information. It's like far too slow for a conversational setting where you need responses from the LLM in 200 milliseconds. And you need to also consider the added latency of connecting these MCP sessions can be quite significant. So you need to think about re-architecting your MCP server in order to optimistically fetch more content, return more content as well, and maybe even think a few steps ahead of not only returning the customer profile in that JSON response, but also returning, like, for example, their orders or their anything else. So yeah, definitely, like, you need to change your MCP server from being more atomic to being more contextual with fewer tool calls, so you suffer less latency. Then the other recommendation I have in terms of crafting MCP servers is like hiding IDs. The worst user experience possible is you're on a phone call and it asks you for a 16-digit ID. So definitely try and hide that as much as possible. and just allow the user to kind of fuzzily match their name to a row in your database if you can, or completely hide IDs from the MCP server, but still send them anyway if you've already preloaded them somehow. And then if you think about MCP as a way of assisting in context reasoning, you also should probably have type IDs. So rather than just having like a 16-digit UUID, it's really important to maybe preface that UUID with an object name, because it really makes the actual in context reasoning a lot better if it's not going to mix up different kind of IDs. If they're all just 16 characters that are hexadecimal, we found like it's sometimes the LLMs are going to hallucinate, but having these object IDs makes it far less likely to hallucinate. And then the other thing is you should probably think about re-architecting a bit your API in order to accept user context, so that you can have like a more stateful interaction where that kind of optimistic fetching of extra data can be grounded in some user context from previous conversations. So yeah, that was a little bit about how we're thinking about MCP at ElevenLabs. We're like really super excited. We think it makes it much easier for you to connect your conversational agents to ElevenLabs, but also that we have a massive opportunity to be the voice client for MCP servers. If you want to get started with us, I've made a coupon code for everyone listening. So if you use ElevenLabs X MCP now, you'll get like 3 months off. And if you're a startup working on MCP, we have startup grants, and we're really keen to support everyone in the space. So with that, I'll say thank you, and I'll pass it back to Yuri.